18 teams for Durin. It was going to be more, but the video is just getting too long. Let's get straight into it with one of my favourites. It's cool how 3 of the 4 characters in the team have wings in their designs somewhere. It's just a shame that Chevreuse lets us down there, but what can you expect? She's French. Most Durin teams are going to use Fischl and Chevreuse. We'll look at a lot of teams that don't in this video, but for now I'll just tell you about why they work so well together. You have 3 damage dealers, Durin is shredding resistances by 20%, Chevreuse has all of her buffs, energy will never be an issue, and the new Hexen Circle buffs for Fischl mean that she's given herself and Arlecchino 45% attack. With Durin and Venti on banner this week, and then Colin being around the corner afterwards, you might be struggling for Primo gems, but not to worry, LD Shop have you covered. They do top-ups for Genshin Impact, Star Rail and more, and it's up to 35% cheaper than in-game. Personally, I think the in-game prices are too expensive to justify buy-in, but the LD shop prices are genuinely worth it, especially with the bonuses for new users. You don't need your login details, just your UID and server, and everything will go right through. It's all completely safe, and I can vouch for that because I use them myself. At the moment, if you register using my link, you get a 15% off coupon and a 5% off coupon, which can save you up to $30. If you've not used your in-game top-up bonus yet, don't worry, that can be activated with LD Shop too. If you invite a friend to register, you'll both get a 15% off coupon after the first order. As if all this isn't enough, if you spend $80 in 1 month, you get a free welkin to claim on the homepage. Check the link in the description for the discount coupons. If you thought Arlecchino had it bad with Moika putting her on the bench, allow me to introduce you to Yoimiya. She's a long-forgotten character, but she was a fan favourite among a lot of the player base. She didn't get drops because people stopped loving her, it's just that she fell out of the meta. Good news is, Durin's bringing her back. The Ictomosaurus, you probably know it as the big blue owl from Natlan, is going to be coming to Stygian Onslaught in a few days. Basically, it's going to give itself a cryo shield, go in the air, and then it's going to try and shit on your head. While your melee characters aren't going to be able to do much about it, Yoimiya is going to shoot it down and put fireworks up its ass. We did say we'd look at teams without Fischl and Chevreuse though, so let's talk about on-field Durin. His best team for on-field will be Farina, Mona and Bennett. Your Bennett does need to be C6 though to convert Durin's normal attacks to Pyro. With most of the other teams, you'll run Durin in white mode, so skill, burst to shred resistances. With this team, because we want him vaping, you'll run him in dark mode, so skill, normal attack burst to buff his vape damage. Farina is necessary in this team because she's going to enable Durin to hold Marechaussee. We appreciate the Mona buffs too, because it was a shame to let such a big hat go to waste. On top of what she was already given, her C1's going to buff Durin's vape damage even more, C2 gives him 80 elemental mastery, and C4 gives him 15% crit damage. Also, you can extend her omen by up to 8 seconds if you do 4 normal attacks after a burst, so try and remember that one because it's important. Seeing as though we're in Nodcry, let's throw in a Nodcry unit. I think it's cool playing Durin and an Nether together with them both technically being artificially made but in different ways. If you don't have a Nether though, you can swap her out for Yelan or Farina. If you go for a Hydro character over a Nether, just make sure to use Durin in dark mode rather than white mode, which I used for this team. It was nice to run Mona on field for a change. She's got pretty much no play on my account since I pulled her, so she almost feels like a new character. With her buffs, I'd go as far as to say she's the best standard 5-star. Oh, by the way, Venti's a DPS now. His normals are converted into Anemo damage and they increase the duration of his burst by 1 second up to a total of 2 seconds. When his burst is active, on-fielders that trigger a swirl reaction have their damage increased by 50% and Venti's burst will deal more damage. With the attack buff from Bennett, shred and off-field damage from Durin, as well as the shred and Anemo buff from Farazan, this is now Venti's strongest team for his own damage. Giving Farazan 4-piece tenacity is going to give the team attack, which is better for Venti, but I recommend 4-piece Viridescent Venera, which is better for Durin. This genuinely felt like one of the strongest AoE teams in the game, so I'm looking forward to seeing if he gives us any more AoE content. Revisiting the Overloaded archetype, but this time with an Electro on fielder, we have this Veressa team. I like the Moika and Yansan variants, but Moika is usually preoccupied with a melt team and Yansan is infamous for dodging people, at least from what I've seen. If you're one of those who she hasn't come home to yet, you'll be glad to know that this team works just as well. It's like a little Teyvat zoo. You've got a dragon, a cow, a raven, and you've got the guard with the gun to shoot them if you try to escape. If you're a regular to this channel, you probably noticed I try and find ways to get more use out of Nilou as the on-fielder every time a new support comes out. This time's no different, with Durin giving us a lot of off-field damage. Honestly, it's not too bad, but Nilou isn't contributing much. Putting Bloom aside, I prefer running her in Freeze with Farina, Escoffia, Lally, and a dual Hydro team with Farina, Kazuha, Shilonen. To anyone like me that just enjoys playing her and finds the sound effects satisfying, you can get some use out of this team. Nilou can hold Harbinger of Dawn too, cause she's gonna be above 90% HP almost all of the time. You'll want Durin in Dark Mode not only for the Nilou team, but also for this team. The reason I play Genshin in the first place is for my first main DPS, Child. It's pretty fitting to play Child with a dragon given the fact he summoned a sea dragon to try and give Liyue a bath. I tried the team with both Sucrose for the Hexerite buffs and Kazuha just for his kit in general. They both performed similar to be honest, which is nice for those that don't have Kazuha. I like the team in AoE but not single target. AoE isn't optimal though, because you want to play Durin in Dark Mode to buff his vape damage, but Dark Mode deals single target damage, not AoE. I hadn't played Child National in a while and found that this team really exposed how weak it is relative to other teams, so hopefully Child can get some buffs at some point. Talking of buffs, we have Clay, the Teyvat Terrorist, Osama bin Genshin herself. Her charged attacks are stronger now, and her normal attack string is less clunky, so she'll be a lot more fun to play. I wouldn't advise pulling her unless you really like the character, but I think buffing Clay was a good idea. It's only fair that those that pulled her get to play her. Durin's an upgrade over Xiangling and her teams too, because he deals more damage and shreds pyro resistance. The Hexen Circle buffs for almost all characters are useful for Clay because it just gives her more team building options, whereas previously she didn't have many and there were better alternatives to her in all of them. You can swap Fischl and Chevreuse out if you're bored of that core, or if you need other elements for specific enemies. The new world boss wants pyro application, so you could go for Xiangling and a healer like Bennett. Of all the teams in the video, this one might have been my favourite. I didn't know if it would work because of all the pyro application potentially messing with blooms, but for a random bullshit go team, it was one of the better ones I've played. If you find the lack of healer a little risky with Arena's bleed, you can use Albedo instead. He's going to trigger the Hexerite buffs, his burst gives the team elemental mastery, and you might even get some crystallized shards for resistance to interruption. With Farina or Albedo, I'd go with Durin's White mode, but if you want to go for more comfort with Shilonen instead of Lauma, you can use Durin in Dark mode for his vape damage. Raze has got some much needed buffs. The damage dealt by the electro attacks in his burst are now increased by 70% of his attack. If you have two Hexen Circle characters in the team, when his electro sigils exceed the limit, he'll deal an instance of AoE electro damage and restore 7 energy. At C6, every time he gets a sigil, he'll get 3 instead of 1, and consuming sigils gives him 10% crit rate and 50% crit damage for 15 seconds. Basically, he's good now. So good in fact that his team with Fischl, Chevreuse and Bennett is the strongest 4 stars only team in the game. It's kind of inaccurate to the lore that his teams don't stink of shit now, just him. Sucrose also got some buffs, but I went over that national team quickly before, so we'll talk more about her now. After using her skill, she buffs the team's normal attacks, charge attacks, plunge attacks, skills and burst by 5.7%. After using her burst, she'll buff them by 7.1%. Basically, use her skill and burst and buff most instances of damage by about 13%. At C6, if a burst absorbs an element, she'll buff the team's damage of that element by an extra 8.5% too. With her buffs being quite versatile, I thought I'd load the team with a bunch of damage dealers, and whichever reactions you trigger will benefit from the elemental mastery buffs in her base kit. Ito's been out of the meta for a long time, and to be honest, I still think he will be, but this patch is definitely a win for him. Not only is Albedo getting buffs, but Durin is an almost perfect option for the last slot in Ito teams. Durin is an extra source of damage, but he's also shredding the opponent's geo resistance to make both Ito and Albedo deal more. Ito is quite weak relative to other DPSs, but now we can grab a Constellation for free. His C1 gives him more stacks for his charge attacks, which will help bridge the gap a little. Genshin Impacts love a dragon character, so if you do too, you'll be glad to know Durin synergizes with Knight. If you want the team to do more damage, give Emily Unfinished Reverie and Durin Deepwood. If you want Durin to do more damage, swap it the other way round. If you were previously running Moika in this team, it'll be a relief to free her up for your other teams. She does more for Knight than Durin does, but less for Emily with her being off-field and not able to take advantage of a buff from Moika's burst, which only buffs the on-fielder. Overall, Fairycrafters say Durin is better for the team, but he could get even stronger if he gets his own signature set in Luna 4. We might as well call this one the Palworld team because we're giving the dragon a gun. Most Chaska teams use Moeka, but as we discussed in the last team, she's a highly in-demand character. We take alternatives wherever we can get them, and Durin is one with his own damage as well as the shred. People often run Chaska with Farina too, who's also a character in high demand, so Mona's new synergy with Chaska is appreciated as well. Let's say you're using Seatlally in a Moeka team though. There is the option to just use Fischl and Yansan instead of Seatlally and Mona, and it might even be stronger. I didn't include it in the showcase though, cause too much overloaded would be boring. Mualani's gonna pair well with Durin. We've got Shalonen as the healer for rebuffs and shred, and then you can go with either of Mona or Albedo in the flex slot. Mona gives HP from Hydro Resonance as well as a Roman buff. Albedo gives another source of damage and an Elemental Mastery and damage buff. One of the previous issues with Mualani's Hydro teammates is they apply too much Hydro and steal her vapes. Then there was Mona's Omen buff, which was too short to get much use out of it, but in Luna 3 that's not the case. The Sucrose buffs are useful too if you use her in the flex slot. With us not using a burst, it'll only be a 5.7% damage buff, but it's better than nothing, and it will apply to Durin's damage too. With Durin and Yehoda being on a banner together, I thought to try them in a team, and it wasn't as bad as I expected, to be honest. I think it's one of those weird teams where instead of there being any strong synergies between characters, it just beats content with their individual strengths. Yehoda's Elemental Mastery buff isn't doing much for Mona, but she does give us Ascendant Gleam so that the non-Nodcry characters can buff the Lunar Charge damage. This is a C0 Yehoda too, so if you can grab a C6, she's going to give a Neff of 5% crit rate and 40% crit damage. With Flynn's being so powerful in Lunar Charge teams, I think people forget Ineffa can do it by herself. Ineffa is definitely my favourite of the two though, and this is yet another team for her. For the last team, I just wanted to throw a bunch of Hexarai characters in there, but given the fact we don't have a healer yet, I figured I'd use Shalonen to showcase how strong a pair her and Albedo are. For a score out of 10, I'd give Durin a 9. He's extremely versatile, deals damage, shreds resistances, and makes a lot of the Hexencircle characters more viable again. I don't think we've seen his ceiling either, with a potential artifact set in the future and maybe more characters to synergize with in Alice and Nicole. I'll be releasing team showcases for Yehoda, Venti, Albedo and Mona soon, and also dropped a Columbina video already. If you're interested in those, subscribe to the channel, don't forget to join the Discord in the description, and take it easy.